Let's start with each item is unique.
Yeah, sure. So I think that's probably the easiest to understand or to explain. So in recommerce, you're selling or servitizing items that end up or already have a unique condition, unique grading, thus unique price points. So if you want to sell unique items, which are almost collectible in nature, you have to make sure that all of your inventory is recorded and tracked on a single SKU basis, so single item level. That's essentially the simplified version there. So instead of aggregating a bunch of stuff behind SKUs, you can still do that for reporting purposes or kind of describing relationships, but then behind that you still need to have that idea of every item is unique.
It sounds quite simple, but I guess it's actually makes the whole software and twice commerce in this case actually quite different compared to the, let's say, traditional or linear commerce software.
It is quite simple if you just think about it as a, let's take a snapshot of a situation and how does the data look like. In that sense, it is simple. The complex aspect of that starts to come about when you have to build relationships between your catalog and a single SKU inventory. So how do you productize your single SKU inventory in a dynamic way? Or in order fulfillment, if you kind of assign individual items to orders, in order fulfillment, do your employees need to find that specific item? Or are there still like some opportunities to switch items? So the complexities start to come about in operational context. If you look into it purely in data modeling, it's quite simple. You just kind of explode those SKUs into single articles, but then the challenges come from aggregating data and knowledge to those single items and how those then affect the operational context of order fulfillment or categorization of that. So there's a lot of the complexities come kind of afterwards.
It sounds like in this type of single SKU inventory, where you're tracking each item individually, you're kind of, by default, your catalog is not your inventory. It might not be the same in linear businesses either, but they are maybe more linked to each other.
Yeah, cutting a lot of corners and again, probably simplifying a level that earns a couple of hateful comments wherever this is published. But in traditional linear commerce, there is a relationship between your catalog and your inventory in a way that you could define your catalog, and then once you have a product in your catalog, you can tell what is the SKU, so the stock keeping unit of this catalog item. And then against that SKU space, you could say how many of these items I have. So stock keeping unit, it kind of comes from the aspect that how do we keep stock for this catalog item. So it made things a bit simpler. So you could say that keeping track of stock was kind of keeping track of a number, a quantity number that goes up and down depending on how much you sell or buy in. Whereas in single SKU tracking, your catalog is a bit more dynamic, especially if you do rentals, for example. So individual items can fulfill that order. And then as that relationship becomes a lot more complex, so does the inventory tracking and all of that.
And I guess there is also this kind of new need when the items are actually coming back and having multiple cycles, that you actually track events on those individual items as well, something that's not usually needed in the linear commerce world.
Yeah, from the perspective of a merchant in linear commerce, you hold on to that product for the whole time that you hold on to the product. It's kind of static in state, and by state I mean like the condition and price and all of that. You kind of assume it to be. If it wouldn't be, it would be a defected item or something like that. But in your happy path, your assumption is that all of those are the same, and they stay the same until you send it out. And then you might have had to kind of like tip your toes into this water if you tried to professionalize your product returns, for example, and making something out of that. So then you had kind of this item, but maybe a little bit different. It maybe has a scratch somewhere, or it's once used. So you had to start to identify them as maybe a sub SKU of something, like it's this SKU but a bit different. And so, but yeah, in a linear commerce, historically, you could say that they were all kind of similar. But then when we go to re-commerce, items become unique, and as you said, you need to start tracking these kind of events that connect to that item, because they change the nature of that item and the facts about that item. And that's probably what we'll discuss when we talk about the temporality